I am the real heiress who was deliberately switched at birth. When my biological parents found me, I had already joined the square dance team of the neighborhood aunties. They looked at me dressed in full floral prosperity attire, made a disgusted expression. Are you Patricia? These clothes? The well-dressed woman paused when she saw my floral prosperity knit set. Ignoring the fleeting look of disdain in her eyes, I set down the bag of rice and cooking oil I was carrying on my shoulder. Then pulled out a thermos from the shopping bag. After taking a sip of tea, I finally looked at the people in front of me and asked, "Are you my biological parents?" Mr. Springfield frowned but still nodded, saying, "We are your biological parents." "Then who is she?" I glanced at the delicate-looking girl standing behind them. The girl's eyes instantly reddened. The two men, one big and one small, beside her instinctively stepped forward to shield her. "Don't you bully Doreen." The younger one blurted out impatiently, unable to hold back his thoughts. I looked at this face that bore a 50 to 60% resemblance to mine. Observing the Springfield family's reaction to his words, I suddenly found this family quite interesting. So he leaned back on the shabby sofa behind him, watching them with a spectator's gaze. Perhaps realizing the impropriety of those words, the older one stepped forward to explain, "We know you've suffered a lot these years. But all of this is that woman's fault. Doreen is innocent." Before he could finish speaking, the door of the rental house was suddenly pushed open by a group of people, the aunties, dressed in the same flourishing flowers and wealth knit set as mine, immediately surrounded my birth parents upon entering, chattering away to help me lodge complaints. "You must be Patricia's birth parents, right? What took you so long? Do you know how Patricia has been living all these years? Let me tell you. Patricia's adoptive mother is truly inhuman. You know those thick laundry sticks? That woman would just pick one up and start beating her without hesitation." Exactly. Normally not letting her eat is bad enough, but deliberately cutting Patricia's school uniform in the middle of winter and making her wear a torn t-shirt to school, and then locking her up during the high school entrance exams to prevent her from taking them. No wonder. How could any mother in this world be so cruel? Turns out she wasn't her real mother after all. You must bring her back. And as for that fake daughter of yours, you'd better investigate her too. She probably knew all along that her mother intentionally swapped the children. Who's crying? The leader, Aunt Ella, froze for a moment. A group of middle-aged women immediately looked around, searching for the source of the sobbing, before finally fixing their gazes on the young girl in white standing in the room. "Little sister, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take everything from you. The girl lowered her head, her shoulders trembling violently as she cried. "Could this be?" Aunt Ella widened her eyes and made a shushing gesture. I nodded. "She is Anna's biological daughter Doreen. Patricia. Anna is Anna. The things she did have nothing to do with Doreen," my biological older brother Alvin said. The Springfield family, the others, also nodded in agreement with his words. After all, they were all part of the square dancing circle. With just a glance, the seasoned aunties could immediately grasp the underlying dynamics. Before the Springfields could continue, my Auntie Rona, who had never even spoiled her own son in her entire life, cut in. "Oh dear, that's not the way to put it. Whether the little girl is innocent or not is another matter, but with her crying like this, what do you expect Patricia to do? Comfort her in return." Aunt Rona directly pulled up my sleeves that were covering my hands, revealing the scars on the back of my hands. "Look at this. These were burned by her own mother with a red-hot fire poker. Now look at this girl, dressed in designer clothes, raised by you all to be delicate and tender-skinned. If Patricia has to apologize to her and comfort her instead, do you really think that's appropriate?" Aunt Rona then turned her gaze to Doreen. "Young lady, maybe you can't be blamed for what your mother did. But Patricia has suffered for over a decade because of your mother. Have some mercy and stop playing the victim now. Aren't you just stabbing Patricia in the heart?" As she spoke, Aunt Rona wiped her tears with her sleeve and pulled me into a hug. "You silly child. Always keeping everything bottled up inside. Before, there was no one to care for or love you. But now your real parents are here. How could they possibly favor others over you? These are your own flesh and blood. If you have any grievances, you should speak up. Patricia's real parents, don't you agree? The group of aunties turned their gazes in unison toward the Springfields' parents. The Springfields' parents smiled awkwardly. Yes, if you have any grievances, just tell Mom and Dad. Left speechless by Aunt Rona's words, Doreen could only stare at the Springfields with reddened eyes, biting her lip. Before boarding the car with the Springfields, Auntie Rona shoved a shopping bag into my arms, saying it was the dance team's new uniform, but inside was actually a very youthful-looking tracksuit. I knew this was Auntie Rona and the others worrying I wouldn't have clothes to wear when school started, so they specially went to buy it for me. I said thank you and gave the aunties the discounted eggs I grabbed at the supermarket today. Then I locked up the newly bought oil and rice beside me. Alvin reminded me that there was no need to lock these things up, as we wouldn't be coming back anyway. Tilting my head, I glanced at Doreen, whom he was gently comforting, and the Springfield family's parents and younger brother behind him. I smiled at him without saying a word. Alvin turned his head and couldn't help but say, Patricia, Doreen didn't mean it. She genuinely feels guilty towards you. She's cried several times at home. Yeah, right. I casually responded with a couple of words, took the new clothes the woman gave me, slung my backpack over my shoulder, and immediately got into the car. On the bus, I was looking at my phone, while the Springfield family was looking at me. Aunt Ella sent me 5000 in the group chat. This is a little token of our affection from the aunties. You're not allowed to refuse it. Aunt Rona also messaged me in the group. Patricia, if you're really not happy over there, just come back. The other aunties all chimed in agreement. We are all working-class people living in this neighborhood. Although the aunties are retired now, their monthly pension is less than 2,000 yuan. Aunt Rona and Aunt Sally still have to set up stalls at the market to earn extra money for household expenses. All these years, every penny they've spent on me was saved from their own mouths. Suddenly sending me such a big red envelope now is nothing more than realizing my biological parents' favoritism and fearing that I won't fare well when I go to the Springfields' home. Patricia, your outfit, Mrs. Springfield frowned at my floral extravagance and finally couldn't help but say, from now on, you'll be a young lady of the Springfields, and both your attire and behavior must be proper, and at your age, you should be making more friends your own age, broadening your horizons, and expanding your social circle, instead of spending every day with those middle-aged women. In this regard, you can learn a lot from Doreen and Gallen's tour, and it will also help strengthen the bond between you sisters. Mrs. Springfield spoke with genuine sincerity, and Doreen naturally played along. She took my hand proactively, her affectionate attitude giving me goosebumps. Mom, don't worry, I'll make sure to teach my little sister well. Little sister, after we get back, I'll pick out a couple of suitable outfits for you from my wardrobe. As for what you're wearing now, just have the housekeeper throw it away when we get home. Exactly, said Doreen, who was sitting beside Galen. Who knows what kind of trash you're wearing? It's hideous. If you keep dressing like this in Galen's tour, don't you dare say you're from our Springfield family. It's so embarrassing. I froze for a moment, put down my phone where I'd been replying to my dear aunties, and looked at them with a smile. But do you know why I always wear auntie-style clothes? Because her mother, that is, Anna, cut up all my clothes to prevent me from going to school. Not just that, even the old clothes given to me by the neighbor who couldn't stand it anymore, she burned some and cut up the rest. Later, it was those aunties you looked down on who came up with a solution. They recruited me into their dance team to help out, saying the clothes I wore were team uniforms, the dance team's property. If she damaged them, she'd have to pay, so I could finally go out every day dressed normally in auntie clothes. By the way, do you know why your mom didn't let me go to school? I stared straight into Doreen's eyes. It was because of that competition in 8th grade when she found out you and I were assigned to the same school for the exam. She suddenly realized that if I continued studying like this, I might very well be discovered. Oh, by the way, just now Aunt Ella and the others were too embarrassed to mention it. Do you know what else Anna did to me on the day of the high school entrance exam after locking me in the room? She let an old bachelor in and said she sold me to him for 2,000 yuan. telling him to consummate the marriage with me. Stop it, Mrs. Springfield turned pale, clutching her chest with her hand, looking as if she couldn't bear to hear any more. Springfield family. The others also wore awkward expressions, seemingly at a loss for words. Heh, I chuckled lightly, as if oblivious to their expressions. So you see, you should all thank my aunt. If it weren't for her breaking down the door, rescuing me, and personally sending me to the exam hall, by today I'd either be dead or kidnapped by that old bachelor. Who knows, I might already be a mother of 3 by now. The carriage fell completely silent at that. I curled my lips slightly, leaned back against the seat, and closed my eyes to rest. Perhaps because my words just now were too explosive. As soon as we arrived at the Springfield house, Mr. and Mrs. Springfield excused themselves for work and immediately fled the scene. Of the remaining 3, Doreen and Galen also couldn't withstand my gaze and eventually ran off. In the end, only the eldest brother, Alvin, took me to the room prepared for me, a converted guest bedroom on the first floor. I glanced at Doreen and Galen running upstairs, still only smiling at Alvin. Alvin felt slightly awkward for a moment and explained, "This is just temporary. I'll have someone renovate the empty room on the second floor, and you can move up there later." Seeing that I was still only smiling without speaking, his expression darkened slightly. "Patricia, we know you've suffered a lot in the past, but all of that is over now. I'm on me, Dad, and I will make it up to you from now on. Why must you deliberately hold on to the past and make everyone uncomfortable?" Uncomfortable. I paced around the room as I asked, "Didn't you see Mom and Dad's expressions just now?" He said reproachfully, "It's not just Mom and Dad, there's also Doreen. How do you think she's supposed to carry on in this household after hearing what you said?" Spotting a long decorative piece in the room, my eyes lit up. I grabbed it and swung it at Alvin, giving him a solid whack. Suddenly struck by the blow, Alvin clutched his head and glared at me angrily. "Have you lost your mind?" I hefted the rod-shaped craft in my hand and laughed. "Did that hurt? What do you think?" Alvin looked at me as if I were a madman. "Patricia, you owe me an apology. But that hit was from just now, and compared to what I've endured over the years, it's not even a tickle. Why must you cling to what just happened and embarrass me, brother?" I mimicked the tone he had just used. Alvin choked. I simply waved at him and closed the door directly. "Bye, brother." Dinner at the table. Perhaps out of a sense of compensation, Mrs. Springfield specifically asked about my favorite dishes and had a table full of meat prepared. Seeing me eat without any hesitation, the Springfield family's parents finally showed a hint of relief on their faces. "Patricia, from now on you are the daughter of the Springfield family. Tomorrow I'll have my secretary take you to change your surname," Mr. Springfield said. I glanced around at the few people present, finally letting my gaze linger for a moment on Doreen's slightly swollen eyelids before asking, "What about her? Will she also change back to her original surname?" The Springfield family, the parents' relaxed expressions instantly froze again. Doreen froze for a moment, then bit her lip. "If you really dislike it that much, I can move out." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Patricia, don't go too far." The impatient Galen had already jumped up to scold me. I just asked if she wanted to change back to her biological mother's surname. I glanced indifferently at Galen. Hearing that I had no intention of making Doreen move out, the Springfields visibly relaxed. Seeing their reaction, I couldn't help but smile. But since she brought it up herself, then let's do as she says and let her move out. After all, she's not wrong. I really don't like her. "Patricia," Galen glared at me furiously, "how can you be so vicious? Doreen even told me she wanted to give her room to you. Doreen has been accommodating you at every turn. Why are you still targeting her?" "Forget it, Galen. I know my sister doesn't like me. All of this was originally meant to be returned to her anyway." Doreen sobbed softly. "Patricia," Mrs. Springfield watched with a pained expression, looking at me helplessly. I just calmly took out the prepared photo from my pocket and tossed it onto the table. When everyone saw the face in the photo, they instinctively turned to look at Doreen, because Doreen looked exactly like her biological mother, Anna. "So now do you understand why I don't like her?" I rolled up my sleeves, propped my chin with both hands. exposing the crisscrossing scars on my forearms for all to see. Perhaps because they had already seen the scars on the back of my hands, the Springfield parents opened their mouths as if wanting to say something more. I then directly revealed the inner side of my arm, where Anna had carved the words "worthless dog" with a knife. At that moment, the Springfield family finally fell silent. I happily helped myself to 2 large pieces of meat in my bowl. Meanwhile, Doreen, who was stuck in place unsure whether to stay or leave, could only look helplessly at the Springfield family. Alvin finally sighed and kindly advised me, "Patricia, we know you've had a hard time these years, but Doreen has grown up in our family since childhood and shares deep bonds with us. We won't send her away, and we hope you won't take out your anger on her because of her mother, that woman's affairs. We hope you can get along well with Doreen and Galen's tour." I put down my chopsticks, ignoring Alvin's words, and looked at Doreen with a faint smile, asking, "What about you? Do you want to get along well with me?" Doreen was taken aback, her eyes immediately reddening as she pouted and said pitifully, "Little sister, even though I know you don't like me, I've genuinely wanted to get along well with you from the very beginning. So, you never actually intended to leave the Springfield family from the start," I said. "In that case, why keep threatening to return everything to me, just to mess with me?" Doreen's eyes quickly welled up with panic, on the verge of tears as she stammered, I wasn't, but I had no intention of indulging her performance any longer. Simply stating I'm done eating, I stood up and headed for the 2nd floor. At this moment, Galen finally snapped out of it and rushed to block my path. "What are you going upstairs for? Didn't you just say that your Doreen sister wanted to give up her room for me, and I accepted?" I narrowed my eyes, smiling kindly at Doreen and the other members of the Springfield family. "Surely this isn't fake too. Or did you say it knowing I was staying in the guest room, just to provoke me?" Doreen hurriedly said, "And no, I genuinely wanted to give the room to my sister. It's just, good." I cut her off, turning to the housekeeper nearby. "Then please, Auntie Sarah, arrange for someone to move Doreen's things to the guest room now. After all, if I were to do it myself and something went missing, I wouldn't be able to explain it clearly." Auntie Sarah looked hesitantly at the Springfield family parents. "What? Doreen has already agreed herself. Does anyone else have objections, or do you think I'm not worthy?" I asked. "No, Patricia, don't overthink it, Mr. Springfield said to Auntie Sarah. "Let's proceed as the 3rd young lady suggested, Dad." Doreen widened her eyes, looking at Mr. Springfield with a teetering gaze. Mr. Springfield turned his head away guiltily, urging Alvin to quickly arrange the renovation of the vacant room on the 2nd floor. "You weren't in a hurry to decorate before picking me up, but now you're suddenly in a rush. How amusing." But what's even more interesting is Doreen's fleeting look of venom in her eyes. I knew she wouldn't be able to hold back much longer. "That's right. This is more like the person who pretended to dial the wrong number and, under the guise of venting to a random aunt, hinted at Anna keeping an eye on me." Doreen, the first time I learned about this was on the day of the celebration banquet for Anna's younger brother's son getting into high school. Anna got completely drunk and kept laughing triumphantly after coming back. She said her parents had always favored her younger brother since childhood, and to buy a house for his marriage, they sold her for a $200,000 dowry to an old cripple. After the old cripple died unexpectedly, her parents took all the compensation money to support their grandson. But so what? The grandson they poured their hearts into raising could only barely get into an ordinary high school after killing himself with effort. My daughter is different. She was born a princess and will remain one for life, as long as you, this jinx, aren't around. Yes, as long as you're gone, drunk and staggering." She tried to find a stick to beat me but collapsed to the ground, unable to stand up. Just Anna was usually quiet when drunk, but this time she kept rambling on and on about how her daughter was doing this and that, which was completely out of character. From her slurred and incoherent drunken words, I pieced together the whole story. I wasn't her biological daughter, while her real daughter was living a life of luxury with my parents. Moreover, her real daughter seemed to have been pretending not to know and getting close to her, guiding her to keep me away from my biological parents, When the aunties found out, they immediately took me to file a report, afraid that I might encounter something again. They pooled money to get me a phone, but by the time we returned from the police station, Anna had already disappeared. Doreen's belongings had all been moved out. I have to say, she really had a lot of stuff. The clothes and jewelry in the walk-in closet alone filled up an entire guest room, including other items. It took 2 whole guest rooms to store everything. In comparison, the belongings I brought with me, just a backpack and a shopping bag, looked rather shabby. Mrs. Springfield stood somewhat awkwardly in the spacious, empty suite, watching as I hung my only 2 sets of clothes in a walk-in closet the size of an entire room. The displeasure I felt earlier for stealing Doreen's room turned into guilt at this moment. "Patricia," she began, yet I simply pretended not to notice the change in her expression. Still wearing my cheap Bluetooth headphones to video call with the aunties while clocking in for square dancing, until she hesitated, about to leave. I turned my head and called out to her, "Mom." She looked at me in surprise, tears quickly welling up in her eyes. This was the first time I had called her that since my return. "Patricia," she came over and took my hand, pouring out her heart. "Patricia, I'm sorry for all the suffering you've endured these years. Your father and I will make it up to you from now on, and will never let you suffer the slightest grievance again." At that moment, my nose also Patricia ached with a sudden sourness. "What if I told you that Doreen and Anna have been in contact all along? Would you believe me?" I asked. Mrs. Springfield fell silent. Her glistening tears trapped in her eyes, no longer moved as she had been moments before. Just as I had guessed, from the moment I first saw their attitude towards Doreen, I knew it would be like this, but I still couldn't help asking, "Even if you don't believe it, would you have someone investigate it properly?" "Patricia, this can't be," she stammered in panic. I smiled, reverting to my usual indifferent and nonchalant demeanor. "All right, I understand." I smiled as I ushered Mrs. Springfield out of the room. "I need to rest, Mrs. Springfield." Then without hesitation, I closed the door, and with that, I firmly shut the door in my heart as well. I took out my phone and replied to a contacts message. "Okay." Since the Springfields were unwilling to help me seek justice, I had no choice but to take revenge myself. After making my decision, I refused to change my surname and transfer household registration, citing Doreen's unchanged surname as the reason. Although the Springfields were somewhat displeased by this, there was little they could do about it. After staying with the Springfields for a while, the day of school opening finally arrived. I went downstairs wearing the new sportswear the aunties bought for me. Galen snorted as soon as he saw me. "You're not planning to wear that for registration, are you? NH is nothing like the trashy schools you've attended before." "So what?" I pulled out a chair and sat down, directly taking off my jacket to reveal the advertisement printed t-shirt underneath. "Or do you think this would be more appropriate for me to go in?" Seeing the scars on my arm, Galen's expression immediately darkened. Mrs. Springfield immediately took out a bank card and handed it to me. "This is the allowance your father and I are giving you. You can buy some clothes you like." I glanced at the bank card in front of me and asked, "How much is in here?" 100,000, Mrs. Springfield said. "From now on, we'll deposit 100,000 into this card every month." Mrs. Springfield said this while Doreen's eyes revealed a hint of pride. "Can you give me 600,000 first?" I asked. Galen immediately shouted, "Patricia, who do you think you are? Sister Doreen and I only get 300,000 in pocket money each month, and you think you can get more than us?" Galen's voice abruptly stopped under the gaze of the other members of the Springfield family. "Oh ho, someone just self-destructed." I curved the corner of my mouth and calmly looked at the few of them. "That Patricia, your mother and I considered your original situation, so we decided on 100,000 as appropriate," Mr. Springfield explained somewhat awkwardly. I didn't speak and continued to look at him. Alvin then asked me, "What do you need 600,000 for?" "Although our family has money, you've just returned, and we don't want you to pick up those vain and extravagant habits of flaunting wealth. Is that so?" "What kind of behavior is that, giving 30 million worth of jewelry for a birthday?" I let out a mocking laugh from my throat. This was deliberately told to me by the maid who takes care of Doreen. Last year for her birthday, Alvin directly bought her a $30 million pink diamond at an auction. Originally meant to show off to me and make me recognize my place, but being the frank person I am, of course, I had to ask when in doubt. Alvin glanced coldly. "Can you stop being so sarcastic with every word you say?" I smiled and retorted. "You could also stop being so passive-aggressive with every sentence. If you want to say I'm not worthy, just say it directly. Over the years, her mother has called me a bitch and trash who doesn't deserve to live every single day. I'm long used to it." Mrs. Springfield hurriedly stepped in to mediate. "Patricia, your brother didn't mean it that way. He just wants to know why you need so much money." I asked Mrs. Springfield, "If Doreen spent $600,000, would you ask her what she did with it?" Mrs. Springfield choked. "Of course not. As your servant said, Doreen can casually spend hundreds of thousands just to order a bag with matching goods." I looked at Mrs. Springfield. "While I want to spend money to remove these scars on my body, which is also considered vain and extravagant," Mrs. Springfield widened her eyes, instantly filled with guilt. But I knew very well that this guilt was only temporary, and soon her heart would still lean towards Doreen, so I stood up directly and said, "I'm full." Mrs. Springfield saw me heading out and quickly said, "Wait, let the driver take you." I glanced back at Doreen and refused. "Are you sure you want me to be in the same car with your precious adopted daughter at this moment? I can't guarantee what I might do when I see her face." At this, Mrs. Springfield also fell silent. I deliberately glanced at Alvin again and said with a smile, "By the way, today's words hurt me, so I won't be returning to the Springfield house from now on, unless the instigator apologizes to me." Alvin's expression stiffened. I originally planned to take a taxi after leaving the villa area. Unexpectedly, halfway through my walk, I heard Galen's voice from behind. "Hey, you, come up here," he yelled at me angrily through the car window. I glanced at him and pretended not to hear. "Doreen isn't here." He told the driver to stop the car, ran over, and practically dragged me inside. "Are you an idiot? Do you know how long it would take to walk from here?" He pushed me into the seat and shouted at me. I looked at him. "They don't know you came out to see me off, do they?" "None of your business." He scratched his head irritably and tossed me a bank card. "There's $1 million in there. Go find a decent hospital and get those scars removed. They're hideous." I threw the card back. "No thanks. Don't you hate me? Who knows what you're really up to? After all, you're my sister." He stiffened his neck and shouted loudly, as if that would make him seem justified. But after saying that, his face flushed red again, and he awkwardly turned away. "As long as you don't bully Doreen I can reluctantly accept you as my sister. Don't force yourself," I said. "You." He kicked the front seat angrily, but still shoved the card into my backpack. "Anyway, I never take back what I've given away." "Why are you so nice to Doreen?" I asked without thinking. "Just because you grew up together?" "Of course not. When I skipped class as a kid, it was Doreen who covered for me. When I wanted to start a band and my parents objected, it was Doreen who supported me with her allowance. Basically, every time I got into trouble, it was Doreen who bailed me out. Yes, even during exams. Your dear sister helped you cheat," I said with undisguised sarcasm. Galen startled. "How did you know?" "No, don't slander me." Seeing his reaction, I knew the information that person gave me and what I'd uncovered during my investigation were all true. Alvin had long known Doreen was not the Springfield family's biological daughter. And he was also in that kind of relationship with Doreen. To secure sole control of the Springfield family in Galen's tour, he exploited Doreen's and Anna's relationship to prevent me from returning to the Springfield family. On the other hand, he manipulated Doreen into indulging Galen in every way, turning him into a useless person, ensuring Galen would completely lose any qualification to compete with him for the Springfield family. Thinking back to how Alvin has been openly and secretly protecting Doreen these past few days, I feel a chill run down my spine. When I arrived at the school gate, I got out of the car and glanced at Galen one last time before finally saying, "For the sake of this $1 million, I'll give you a piece of advice. Stay away from your dear brother and sister. being sold out and still helping the seller count the money. I have no idea what the Springfields were thinking. It wasn't until I entered the classroom that I realized they had actually placed me in the same class as Doreen. Sure enough, as soon as I stepped into the classroom, the looks from my classmates were unmistakably peculiar, especially when they saw the cheap tracksuit I was wearing. Someone even snorted with laughter. "What kind of person is this? Don't tell me they think being adopted by the Springfield family means they can stand on equal footing with us." Someone said it in a voice that was neither too loud nor too soft. It seems Doreen had already told her classmates something in advance, but the homeroom teacher seemed not to hear at all, simply instructing me to go up and introduce myself. The people below all cast disdainful glances my way. Doreen's eyes even flashed with a barely contained look of anticipation for the drama. This person really never learns. So, following international convention, I took off my coat and then sincerely introduced myself to everyone present. "Hello everyone, my name is Patricia, and the Doreen in our class is, in a way, my sister." I say this because back then, her biological mother, wanting her to have a better life, took advantage of working as a maid at the Springfield household to switch me with her, and these scars on my body are from her mother. As I began explaining how I got these scars, the familiar silence settled over the classroom. People at this age are the most easily swayed, and also the most easily crushed by a sense of morality. What's more, even the homeroom teacher couldn't help but show a fleeting look of pity when they saw the bruises on me. It's clear that many classmates won't be able to sleep well tonight. Of course, the one who will struggle to sleep the most is undoubtedly Doreen. She probably didn't expect that I would so openly and shamelessly reveal my own unsavory experiences in front of everyone. But why should I feel ashamed? If this world can't even tolerate the wounds of victims, then the fault lies with the world itself. I looked directly at Doreen, who was at a loss for what to do, and smiled, saying, "So, Sister Doreen, do you have anything to add to what I've said?" Doreen froze, her tear-filled eyes scanning the surrounding gazes before she finally succumbed to the pressure and ran out crying. After class, the classmates who had been waiting to see me humiliated came over one after another to show their concern. Just then, my phone rang, and the caller ID displayed the name Alvin. I immediately pressed the end call button. A sharp-eyed classmate next to me asked, "Why aren't you answering?" I admitted frankly, "My brother favors Doreen 9 times out of 10. This call is to scold me." The classmates' gazes at me carried a hint more sympathy, and they even started gossiping about the Springfield family, including Doreen's fiancé, who has never shown his face to this day. "You should be careful. In the past, Horace was good, but now that Horace is in a vegetative state, beware of your family pushing this marriage alliance onto you." Before the class bell rang, my new deskmate quietly reminded me. I thought again of that profile picture in my phone. "Let's meet up," I sent to that profile. After school, I returned to Happiness Village. First, I found Aunt Ella and Aunt Rona, giving them $100,000 as funding for the dance team's activities. Then, I went to the night market and found Eric, slapping a card with a full $700,000 on her stall. I said, "Boss, give me a bowl of noodles." After eating, "Pack up. Starting tomorrow, you're going back to school." Eric froze, holding the spatula in a daze for a long while before finally understanding what I meant. Eric once saved my life from Anna's lover. He once stole to buy medicine for me and got beaten black and blue. If the aunties gave me the care of elders, then Eric was the only one who would risk his life for me. I once dreamed of getting into our ideal university together, but her younger sister fell ill, and the surgery plus post-operative treatment would cost 600,000 yuan. Even with conservative treatment, the medical expenses amount to several thousand yuan every month. To pay for his sister's treatment, Eric dropped out of school, working in a factory during the day and running a stir-fried noodle stall at night. Eric looked at me, tears streaming down his face. He opened his mouth but couldn't find the words, so he wiped his tears with his sleeve and said, "Wait a moment." With that, he stir-fried a bowl of noodles for me. After finishing the bowl of noodles, I told Eric to hurry back to school. "Eric, both you and I are people struggling in the mire. When we get a chance, we must climb out, with that. I left the noodle stall. Just as I stepped out of the night market and turned into an alley, I encountered someone, Heiress, who was supposed to be lying in bed as a vegetable. He's the mysterious person I've been in contact with all this time. Alvin is hiding Anna, by the riverside, inside the black sedan. He handed me an envelope. I was somewhat surprised. Aren't you afraid that after I get Anna's whereabouts, I might regret it and not cooperate with you? He smiled slightly, his handsome eyes curving as he said, you wouldn't, because apart from Anna, the ones who truly brought you to this state are also Alvin and Doreen. In this, our goals align. Half a year ago, on the day Heiress got into a car accident, he had caught Alvin and Doreen in an affair. At the time, Doreen knelt before him, begging for forgiveness, while Alvin secretly had someone tamper with his car. Although the accident didn't take Heiress's life, it left him in a coma for 3 full months. In 3 months' time, that bit of evidence would have long been cleaned up, so Heiress concealed the news of his awakening. While working to uncover Galen's family's collusion with Alvin, he also sought opportunities to take revenge on Alvin and Doreen. According to my investigation, that day when Anna suddenly spilled the truth while drunk and revealed your origins, it was likely arranged by Alvin through Doreen. Because the Springfields didn't want to give up the benefits of allying with Galen's family. But Alvin couldn't bear to let Doreen marry over, so they devised a plan to bring